know, for me growing up in an urban community, you never talked about the effects of mental health or what you've seen every single day on a daily basis, affecting your mental health. You know, it was never a discussion during All-Star weekend, just being overwhelmed with everything that was going on. I put out a tweet expressing my depression. You know, it was just an emotional response. Really didn't expect too much of it. With me just sending out a tweet like that, opened up a whole nother door I never would have expected. Relief, freedom, inspiration to others that it's okay to go through things, to be vulnerable, to break down, be okay with figuring yourself out, speaking to other people, being vulnerable to other people. Life is always gonna test you. It's just about figuring out ways to get yourself out of that dark place when it feel like it comes, and that starts with having conversations. Some of the greatest conversations that I've ever had and witnessed was at a dinner table. It's fitting to be able to be in this position to have open heart dialogue about some real things that we deal with on a daily basis. So it's so much that could come from a dinner table conversation. I hope this project will, you know, spread hope, inspiration, and understanding that a dialogue of expressing and speaking out and telling your story is so inspirational.
Welcome to NBA Today. Malika Andrews here with you. I mean, it is not hyperbole to say that the entire power dynamic of the NBA has shifted overnight. A small fraternity, right, that knows what it takes to excel as newsbreakers in the way that Woj has for so many years.
Today we have Malika Andrews on the show. Looking forward to, you know, hearing her story, sharing her point of view coming from a, you know, woman perspective, working in the field of sports. You know, her being one of the best journalists in our game today. Just hearing her story, how she came up and what she have to share.
When I first saw DeMar's social media post, I think I said, "Oh wow," out loud, right? Because it's not sort of the rawness that you see in a really edited world right now. And I think I hope he's okay. You know, I think that's oftentimes it's kind of boom, boom. I hope he's okay. Because that takes a lot to be able to say that, particularly if it's something you're still going through and not just this very neat before and after. And so seeing that, and I just appreciate a player contributing to this space in this way. And so I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Malika, I'm honored. I'm so appreciative of you coming to do dinners with DeMar. It's amazing. I know we talked about it when I seen you at the Sparks game.
It's been a long time coming. I'm excited to be here.
You know, I want to welcome you to the show where, you know, we have those dinner meetings, you know, where you just sit there, you speak about a lot of things that we don't get to speak about, you know, publicly, you know, and I think for me, it go a long way being able to sit down with people I look up to, people I admire, people I know that have a story to tell, and being able to share it over a dinner table means a lot. So I want to thank you for coming on the show. I'm very appreciative of that.
I'm really looking forward to our conversation and our dinner. I'm looking forward
to
it all.
Yeah. Definitely the food too. So I definitely want to start it off. You know, I grew up in Compton, California. You know, I know you grew up in Oakland. You know, how was it for you growing up? You know, NorCal.
Yeah.
How was it for you growing up?
You know, it's funny. Everyone from Oakland is like very proud to be from Oakland, and I put myself into that category. I love that I'm from Oakland. I love getting to say I grew up in Oakland. My folks still live in the same house that I grew up in, so it's kind of cool that I still get that touchstone to go back. But, you know, my Oakland. My dad he went to when he was growing up in Oakland, he kind of wanted better for me and my sister. He was raised by a single mom. My grandma, you know, would leave tinfoil dinner in the oven, and he wouldn't see her oftentimes all day because she worked 2 jobs, kind of trying to make ends meet. And so for him, he always kind of wanted me to have better, and that started with school. And so I went to a private school in Oakland, and that meant that it was me and Amina Lukman, and that was it. There were 2 black kids in our entire class from kindergarten all the way up until middle school when our class sizes got bigger. And so for me, that meant that I think what some people expected my Oakland to look like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It didn't always
Sure.
look like that.
Yeah. What was one thing that, obviously for me growing up in Compton, it was big for me to have the family support that I had. And even, hearing you talk about your dad and everything, like my parents was very instrumental in keeping me tonal focused on, just on how to make it out, and giving me the morals, the standards, everything to kind of, lean towards, because it was a lot of distractions that I had to, make it through. A lot of people going down wrong routes. So for me, it was very important to be as close with my family like I was, and they really showed me a lot that steered me away from all the craziness that, would have led me down the wrong road. So even hearing that, your parents fighting to make sure you have a better upbringing, that's what it's all about. And I think a lot of that is kind of, missing in today's climate, is that real genuine love and support of understanding that, the person next to you, whether if it's an older brother, sister, auntie, mom, dad, that put themselves in a position and want better for you, you got to notice that, because it's hard. You know what I mean? Even for me being a parent, of how much I work and because I don't want them to see or understand nothing that I went through, and
You don't want them to know, sort of.
no, I want them to know, but
Yeah.
it's more so like it's a thing that I understand why my parents worked so hard, because they didn't want me to know certain things or feel certain pain that they had to endure and go through. But as I got older, they showed me what it was like. If you don't do this, if you don't have a work ethic, this could happen. You cannot have this. So it drove me and pushed me even more to be able to take care of my whole family.
I don't know how you do it. Like, I'm not a parent, and I have so much empathy kind of for my parents. And like I said, my dad, it was really important to him to give me and my sister better. And he did in so many ways. And at the same time, like, you can't protect your children from everything, right? So by putting me into a PWI, I had this wonderful education, but it didn't stop me from feeling othered, right? It didn't stop me from looking around and saying, there are no teachers that look like me. There are very few students that look like me. Now I'm missing out on some of maybe the cultural experiences that my peers have, that our community has, that now I feel like I'm on the outside looking in. And so there's no perfect recipe.
And that's kind of like my struggle now, that I try to find that fine line of being a parent, because it's like, you don't want to just block them out from, the reality of life, and to try to find that fine line of like, they gonna have to feel pain. They're gonna have to go through certain things, so they know you can't shelter them from everything. And that, I'm like a big baby when it comes to my kids. Like, no, I want to protect them. But at the same time, you got to show them that other side and be a parent and show them the good, the bad, and the ugly, and understand how to maneuver through that. Because, like you said, once you wonder what's on the other side, that's what kind of leads you down to making, bad decisions at times. So, so that's kind of been my struggle, and one thing that kind of puts me in a dark place at times, because it's like, I want to be there at all times. So if my kid falls, if I'm not there, having that anxiety when they go to school, hoping, when school is over, everything is all right. Did somebody mess with you? Did this happen? Did this happen? All these questions, and it just takes me back to when I was a kid, and I was used to get mad at my parents, like, man, why you tripping? I'm all right. Like, I'm fine. Leave me alone. You know what I mean? So that's the tough part. Obviously, me being athlete, being able to, show my kids something even more that my parents didn't get to show me. So, it's definitely a journey. It's a consistent thing that I fight with and struggle with every single day.
Right, but and your show, this conversation, this dinner is sort of all rooted in this big sort of nebulous cloud of mental health. And so for me, like, I hear all of the things that you're saying, but for me, it's sort of like my parents gave me everything.
Yeah.
And my parents were so wonderful, and I never really felt like as a kid that I went without. Like, sure, there are certain things that my parents couldn't afford, this, that, and the other, but I never really went without. And so when I was 11, 12, 13, I just started having this, like, emotion. Have you ever had, like, a feeling that you feel so deeply and intensely that it feels like it's literally trying to crawl out of your skin?
Yeah, for sure.
And, like, you can't necessarily put it into words. And so people, my parents at that age, they would come up to me and they would say, "What's wrong?" Or they would say, "What happened?" Right? And I didn't have a good answer for them, because it's not like something happened and therefore I feel this way. It's not like something is wrong. It's that everything is wrong. And so I found myself, despite all of that, right, despite doing everything right and doing the very best that they could, like, that's when I started to just be so angry that it felt like it was seeping out of my pores. And I felt like I was so sad and I didn't have a good reason to be. And trying to explain that, I didn't have the language for it, particularly to my dad, who loves me so very much, who didn't feel the way that I felt in those ways. And him trying to kind of understand that, that's where sort of this mental health journey, if you will, started for me, and what it showed up as. Because as much as you try to protect your kids from everything, it's still, it's messy.
For sure. And I think that's one thing I tend to do now is, you could tell kids don't have the words to say when they feeling something. So a lot of times, you know, I overly pay attention to, you know, especially my oldest daughters, you know, because they at the age being, you know, 11, and my second oldest daughter, she'll be 8 next month. But, you know, they have feelings now. And at times, I could tell they don't have the words to express exactly what it is that they feeling, you know, and at times, you know, that'd be a struggle for me, because it's like, I want to know, like, what's going on. I want to fix it. How can I help this and that? And sometimes, you know, I just make it a thing of just being there, watching, you know. My second older daughter, you know, sometimes when she get upset and frustrated, you know, she'll just disappear. And
that's what I used to do.
Yeah, and, you know, I'll be like, all right, let me see. And she'd be sitting in a room, you know, in her seat, and I'm like, you know, everything all right, baby? But a lot of times I just try to be there to try to, you know, just so she could feel protected in a sense, you know what I mean? Because a lot of, you know, it's crazy you brought up that feeling. I used to have that same feeling too, of all of a sudden having this built up aggression, frustration, mad, angry. I remember when I was a kid, I used to eat cereal, and if I spill a cereal, I just get so mad and just flip the whole bowl over. But now I'm just making my problem even worse, because now I got to clean this up, and now this. Why am I feeling this way and everything? So I think the way it's so crazy with the emotions that we feel and we carry so young, that lead into, you know, this whole mental health journey that, you know, we just trying to break the whole stigma about it. And, you know, it comes with talking about it, you know, talking about those feelings and try to identify those moments when you feel that way. You know, it's crazy for me when I was a kid, like I became very, the way I express my feelings, I use metaphors and analogies. That was the best way. That was the only way I could use.
Like what?
Like, and it's so crazy, because a lot of people close to me will, like, they will trip off me when I try to express a feeling that I'm feeling in that moment, and I break it down so quick in an analogy by painting a picture for them, and they get it. But I only could do it when I feel a certain type of way. Like, it's, you know, it's weird, but it's like I try to paint a picture so perfect when I'm feeling a certain type of way, so someone can get it, instead of me trying to break it down in, you know, in certain specific words. You know, all I got is these analogies and these metaphors. I hope you get it, and then paint a picture even better. So that's one thing that helped me. So I always try to talk to people and try to, you know, tell them, find a way, what's the best way you can express yourself. Some people use it with art. You know, some people use it by writing. Some people use it by, you know, other habits and everything. And for me, I always use mine with metaphors and analogies, but also just trying to find something outside of my element that I know I'm good at when it comes to sports. You know, I always try to find that. I always use, even to this day, I find, you know the feeling you get doing something for the first time. So I'm a guy, like I will go to Montana, right? And I will go kayaking.
Okay.
For the first time. People would look at me like, "Are you going kayaking?" And be like, yeah, like the feeling of the rush, kayaking, it's like, yo, it's so refreshing and so recharging. Now, whatever it is that I'm feeling, it's easier for me to break down what I'm feeling because I felt like a surge of an energy that I haven't felt in a long time.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I try to find different ways to find that peace and happiness, and even going back to you riding horses. I'm pretty sure it's a joy that comes from it.
I love it.
You know what I mean?
And it's been something I've done it's been something I've done my entire life. And so now I ride in the Los Angeles area, but I told myself this story for the first 2 years that I lived in LA that I didn't have time. Right? Like I told myself this story that you're busy. You have the shows that you're working on. Riding is a time commitment. You have to put your phone down. You can't be, riding the horse over here and texting over there. And so I told myself that just didn't fit into the Rubik's Cube of my life. And then 2 years ago at Christmas, Dave, he gave me a Christmas present rather, of 3 horseback riding lessons. And I didn't realize how much I needed that back in my life. And now I ride 3 days a week, and I make that, if I have to ride it at 7 a.m., if I have to ride at 6:30, I'm gonna go do that. If I have to ride at 2 o'clock and go from the show to ride and then back downtown for games, then I'm going to carve out that time, because all of my mental energy then goes into this activity. And even if I come in thinking about all of these other things that I have to do, or what's going right and what's going wrong in a day, for that hour, for that 2 hours, it all leaves. It all goes away. And, I'm sure basketball has some of that for you, because again, it takes all, but it's also your work and your job. So whenever people ask me about coping, you have to find that thing that works for you, and then you have to prioritize it, because in the times of my life in which I haven't, I found myself very quickly slipping back into just not being very happy.
For sure, yeah.
I just think that so oftentimes, like, I'm a strong Black woman. Black girl magic, right, is such a common phrase that we hear nowadays. And by the way, we are. And by the way, we do. We possess that magic. We are that strength. And at the same times, there's some days that I am a sad Black woman, and I am a tired Black woman, and I am a don't want to get out of bed Black woman. And those multitudes exist. I think that we've sort of created this rallying cry, Black girl magic, but sometimes it's Black girl hard work. And so I think that for Black women, where so much is put, you're at the intersection of so many different places, pulled in so many different directions. Not only are you and I and we experiencing the pull of what Blackness means and the parameters that are put on us in our Blackness, but it's also being a woman and everything that comes with that, and that intersectionality, and trying to hold both of these things at the same time, celebrate them while also feeling the weight. That's a lot. It's a lot to try to figure out how to exactly manage in any given day, and I certainly don't do it perfectly, but I feel it. And, for me specifically, as DeMar and I talk about, one of the ways in which we say mental health, that's really nebulous and all-consuming. For me, it is depression, it is anxiety, and it's an eating disorder. And I don't see very many Black women who say, hey, you know what, that is what I struggle with. Curviness and thickness, and that is something that is so celebrated in the Black community, and yet it's my specific struggle. And so I think it's all of those things to me. That's where I see this conversation, I hope, fitting in and helping someone who maybe feels that way.
Up to a certain point in my life, like every day was just basketball. Every single day. And it used to put me in such an emotional roller coaster to where I didn't want to be around people, I didn't want to talk.
Yeah.
I'm having resentment towards certain people for no reason, and because I sacrifice so much to the game every single day of just trying to fight for perfection and pushing myself, being tired, through the pain, through everything, to it got to a point to where it's like, yeah, I need to find some type of outlet to be able to recharge, to look forward to doing that.
Right.
Because if I don't, it's gonna put me in a miserable place, and I'm gonna be upset going to practice. I'm gonna be upset going to go work out and do all these certain things. So it's one thing I always try to express to people and help them understand, like, find something. It's okay to find something new.
Yeah.
It's okay to find something that's challenging, because it gives you that drive and that something to look forward to outside of everything else.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just gotta get lost in that one thing it may be. So for me, I always try every day. I always try to find something new that gives me that new feeling, so I can be recharged to look forward to go to work and do everything.
But how far off course did you have to get before you found that answer?
It started with me going to like beach in the middle of the night, like just walking on the beach, listening to the waves hit the beach, to looking in the sky and looking at the moon, and that making me realize like it's more to the world than what we may feel at times. You know what I mean? And that kind of like opened my eyes in a sense of like, man, get out of this way you stuck in and try something new. It's okay to do something new, whatever that may be. Like it's like the older you get, when you try something new, you like, nah, forget it. It's like,
Yeah,
you know,
'cause
just
we're all crotchety and stuck in our ways.
yeah, it's so easy to get stuck in your ways. So for me, it's just one of those things that, you know, like I told myself at one point, I haven't got there at one point, it's like I want to learn how to play the piano. You know, I know that's a commitment that, you know, I will get obsessed with, and, you know, you will find joy in it, and seeing the progress is just getting better at it. So, you know, I always just try to look for things, and I always tell people it's a beautiful thing to be able to do that for your mental health, because the older you get, like I always told myself, I didn't want to be like a miserable old man. Like I didn't
a good reminder.
I didn't want to be the person that I always look back at growing up as a kid. I always used to see these older guys, 50, 60 years old, sitting on the porch, just mad at everything. That car driving by, man, why they got that car that color? They should be, you know what I mean? It's like everything was such a negative connotation towards everything. And it used to always make me look at them like, why are you so mad?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you sitting here doing the same thing every single day. If you find something else to put that same energy to, you could be more happier, or have more of a beneficial day, instead of just sitting here complaining about somebody that's just minding their business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of how, like, you know, how I view it, because I've seen so much, I was around so much negativity growing up that it used to drive me crazy. I used to hate it. Like to this day, it's hard for me to like watch the news. I hate the news because it's always something negative on the news. You know what I mean? You can't turn on the news and find something positive out of it that you.
That's why my dad loves subscribing to local newspapers, because he loves it. Like the front page story is like local woman wins baking contest. Like that's what's on the cover, as opposed to some of the larger outlets. But no, I hear you, and I think that goes back to, so when I was backing up a little bit, when I was younger, for me, all that feeling, that need for something to. It felt like everything was wrong. It felt like everything was wrong, and I had no words for it. And so I was, but you couldn't see it. Right? If you looked at me, you couldn't see that hurt and that pain and that anger. And so the way that it came out for me was self-harm. It was cutting. It was an eating disorder that maybe I was looking around saying, okay, maybe if you can see this, maybe if you can see the pain that I'm in, then that's my way of asking for help. And so that took me on this sort of journey through a mental institution and an eating disorder residential and wilderness therapy and 2 residential boarding schools, one of which had horses. And so all of that sort of ended up sort of leading me to coping now. But I kind of always say it's not, at least for me, and I don't know how you feel about this, like it's not a after school special.
Right,
This
right.
isn't I went through this when I was a teenager and now look at me
Yeah.
and I am perfect. Like there are days that it's hard.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh wow.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
When it comes to mental health, it's a collective, right? Depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, those things exist in the dark. They exist in the crevices and cracks that you don't necessarily talk about when you're walking down the street. When a cashier says, "How's your day?" You don't say, "You know what? It sucks and I hurt and I am feeling all of these things." You say, "No, I'm good." You never say anything but "I am good." And so to see prominent players say sometimes, despite everything you're seeing on the floor, "I'm not good. I'm not okay. I hurt. This hurt. This made me not okay. I don't know when I will be okay." That gives license to someone who feels like they are utterly ordinary, that if someone who is extraordinary is feeling that, then maybe my feelings are valid too. And I don't think that it solely falls on athletes to be able to fix the stigma that exists around mental health, but I think the collective, right? It's more people speaking up and saying something makes that feel less like a radical act of bravery, which it is, but more like something that just exists every day, something that most people actually deal with. And so when athletes say that, people who so many, especially young people, put on pedestals, especially in our community, right, in the Black community, I think that that gives license to say, hey, you know what, actually, I'm feeling a little bit of that too. And it's a little bit less scary because this person who I admire so very much is feeling the same thing. I can find a little bit of myself in that.
Sometimes I think that it doesn't always fit neatly into this before and after. It doesn't always fit neatly into this, and that's sort of, I don't know, does it fit neatly for you?
No, not at all. And that's, I don't know, that's the challenge on it. It's like the older I get now, it's just like you start to just realize the imperfection of life.
Yeah.
You know, that you just consistently have to understand, like it's a journey. You know, it's not one thing you could do today to make the rest of your life perfect for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a consistent journey. And sometimes with that you gotta find, you know, the peace in that. You know, I think, you know, like I said, I still have my days where I'm frustrated, I shut down, I'm mad at the world, I'm this, I'm that, you know, I want to tear up the house, but, you know, you realize, like, you know, I'm not the only one out there.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not. So a lot of times for me, like my therapeutic release becomes conversations like this, unexpected, in a sense of like, we just having a conversation, but you can walk away from that conversation feeling,
Yeah.
I just got so much off my shoulders, and it was just a genuine conversation, you know. And I think that a lot of that is missing in the sense of, you know, especially the profession we work in, and is times have changed so much because you got social media, you got to deal with, you know, the stuff that comes with being on social media. I remember days where you could read the newspaper and that's where it stopped. You know what I
Right.
mean? That's where you got your information from. Nowadays, everybody's a reporter. Everybody is a newspaper. Everybody got something to say. You know what I mean? And it becomes so overwhelming at times because it just feel like it's nonstop at
Right.
times. You know, and I know for me sometimes I have to just get off social media at times, like put my phone down at times because we get so consumed with what's going on in our phone.
Right.
Instead of just, you know, worrying about, you know, what color your child like or what you know, it's so
Yeah.
much to it. You know, it becomes so in depth. Like I always trip now when I'm with any of my kids. It's like, you know, they can't leave the house without an iPad, and it's like I remember being a kid in the car. It's like you better look at every car
Right.
that go by
Exactly.
on this road.
And
like,
you're gonna play, okay, have you seen a red car,
Yeah,
then a
exactly.
orange car,
You-
then a yellow
you-
car,
you gonna
or
play those
whatever,
games.
or the ABC or the license plate
yeah,
game, or
you gonna play those games.
are you a
So,
people pleaser?
Yes, and that's part of my problem.
That's mine too.
You
Like
know what I mean?
I care a lot what people think, and I've worked on it, and I've gotten better at it, and I have tried really hard to pour myself into the idea that those that matter don't mind, and those that mind don't matter, and to have a circle of people that you can listen to and trust for feedback to pierce through the noise. But I don't think that folks are meant to know. There was a time when you had to, if you turn the ball over at the end of a game, and if I wanted, as a fan, and I wanted to complain about that, thank you so much. And if I wanted to complain about that, I would have to pick up the phone. I would have to call the practice facility, ask to get through the person who answered the phone to maybe the team. There are all these layers, right? I'd have to write a letter saying, I'm so angry, DeMar turned the ball over. I'd have to call a news station and say, I didn't like how Malika, whatever the case may be. And now there's just this constant cacophony online that exists at the touch of a button. And no one is meant to know that much about what people think of them. And I've gotten much better at not looking. There was a time in which I would search my name, this, that, and the other. I've quit that, but it doesn't mean you don't feel it. I have no idea how you do it with the amount of people. But I think if I feel that, I can only imagine how that feels for you and how you deal with that.
See, I think your position is a lot tougher because a lot of times, like, you know, you're the one kind of, you got to bring up these topics. You got to have these conversations in a sense to where it's like, I'm going out to play, and for that 2 hours I'm on the court, I could just go home after that. I don't got to turn on anything. A lot of times, you know, I have moments where I watch a game on mute, you know, at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, you have to protect yourself.
Yeah, you got to. So, like, you know, just you being a woman in that field, I just feel like it's so tough now because it's like you have a world kind of combating whatever topic y'all have to talk about for that day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh, let's see what Stephen A. have to say. You know, let's go against everything he's saying. That don't make sense. Now, everybody else become a reporter in real time.
Yeah.
Whether if it's picking up their phone saying, oh, she said this, and it's like, you know, it's like it's such a.
No, I
feel like
hear
it's
you.
a lose-lose in a sense.
I mean, I hope that, like, I try very hard to make it so that the things that I've experienced, I try to keep that in mind when I'm talking about players, right? I try to have that empathy
For sure.
and understand that I have a job to do, but also understand, like, I'm not here to play gotcha.
For sure.
I say you've heard me say this before, I always say, I want to be two things. I want to be accurate and I want to be fair.
For sure, yep.
And if I'm not one of those two things, you might not always like me, but this is my number, please call me. And people have called and they've said that. And I say that oftentimes to before, especially before I'm talking to folks about something that is sensitive or tough, because these things come up. And it is hurtful. Like, and I think that's okay to say sometimes. It hurts. Even, it doesn't matter if it is someone who is credible or someone with a big platform, or if it's someone in their mom's basement just firing off a post. Sometimes it is hurtful when that seeps through, particularly for me when it's not true.
Right.
And that's been the hardest part for me sometimes, is stomaching the falsehoods, particularly, you know, this you hate black men, or think that couldn't be farther from the truth, and using my family or the way that my family looks as some sort of evidence of that. And that is just untrue.
For sure.
And it's just unkind. And, you know, we all have jobs to do, and we do our best. I try to do my best to show up every day in a way that you guys know what I'm about. And that doesn't mean that I've covered every story perfectly. It doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes, but I think I'm pretty good at saying to you guys in particular, could have been better there.
No question.
And that's, I think, what I hope we can keep as social media continues to be bigger in the world, that kindness and that humanity that I worry sometimes we're losing.
Yeah, and I feel like it's getting tougher and tougher, because I think people on the other side of the phone don't have that empathy, or don't look at,
or context of, like,
at
we
all.
talk. Like, it's not like you
that's-
just show up and
exactly.
like ask a question and leave.
Exactly, and I always sit and think about how, you know, people on the other side of the phone should view and look at us more like we're human. But the same as them, it's like y'all look at us like, you know, we some high supreme beings or something. Like we all normal, and it's like you're attacking this person. That's why my whole career I've never been a person to where you never see me go back and forth with like, because it's like I respect everybody's position when it comes to our occupation.
Yeah.
I respect it from top to bottom. You never hear me say anything bad about anybody. Whoever job is to be on TV, that's job is to critique me. I'm not gonna be perfect. You know what I mean? I could have had a terrible game. Please say it. I'm not gonna take it personal, but it's so, we live in such a sensitive state and such a judgmental state in the same token that those two things collide with social media makes it tougher on people that's, whether if it's in my position or your position, because there's a lot of guys I know, you know, that struggle with being attacked socially.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's tough. You know, I have to put in perspective. Luckily, I grew up in an era where, you know, we didn't have that. You know, so I could tell the difference. So it always scares me, like you said, social media getting so much bigger, that kids are growing up into this, and it's everything that they know.
Right.
You find acceptance behind a phone, which, you know, will put you in a very depressing state easier.
It puts me in one now.
Yeah.
Like even like going through, you know, if you look at edited images and all of these things, you see yourself back. That was something on TV that I didn't necessarily think that I was going to have to combat. Is seeing myself on TV, and as someone who struggles with my body image, being like, oh, that's what I look. That's what this person said. That's what I look like. That's what like seeing that mirrored back to me at times. I have to kind of take that piece out of it, because I don't know. That's something that I didn't expect to be hard for me. That sometimes is. And we get two jobs, right? Like as Monty Williams always says, we get two jobs, not have two jobs. And we're so lucky to get to do that. And that doesn't mean that you're not still holding the parts of it that are a little ugly or a little challenging or a little difficult. And that kind of goes back to what you're saying about basketball. So many people are going to look at you and say, what do you have to complain about? What do you have to be upset about? What do you have to be? And sometimes you just are. Sometimes that's just your makeup. Sometimes that's just your chemistry. Sometimes that's just what's going on. There's no rhyme or reason or why. It's just, this is what it is. And now you have to kind of, I don't know, deal with it.
Yeah. That's tough. It trips me out every time I hear different people's perspective on that, because it's so sensitive, because people, like, I really try to have empathy towards anybody I come across. Top to bottom. I don't care the smallest to the biggest, because I really view, and I always try to come off as you know, we the same. You know what I mean? Because like I just give off that empathy, because, you know, you never know, a positive thing or a positive, you know, moment with a person can change a person's life. You know what I mean? And I always carry that, no matter if I'm having a rough day, if I'm walking in a building full of people, if I could be any type of positive, that could go a long way for that person. And I think we don't have enough of that because of the BS social media, of just the trolling, of the negativity of people not giving off that empathy towards people that's on TV, that are humans, that have family, that their family have to see this, and it's so crazy. And a lot of that always frustrates me from that standpoint, because it's like, you know, it scares me even now, to where it's like, damn, I hope my kids don't on social media. But then that's gonna be another parenting tool that I'm gonna have to go through.
Yeah,
and
I was gonna say they
like,
probably
you know,
are.
It's like,
right?
It's like, you know, even with my oldest daughter, it's like one day she was telling me she was in a text group chat with her whole basketball team. I'm like, oh my God, what do y'all talk about in here? You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, and it's just crazy times that's so scary, in a sense of like, how do we give off that confidence to one another to not fall victim to, you know, a false perception of a social media. You know what I mean? You know, leaving Chicago Bulls, you know, was tough. You know, a lot of close relationships I built in my 3 years being there with the staff, organization, especially the players. You know, it was tough leaving there, leaving a great city. You know, they showed me nothing but love during my time there. You know, try to give everything I had my 3 years there. You know, I wish those guys the best. I'm looking forward to this next opportunity. Changes, new team. You know, in SAC playing for the Kings now. You know, I'm excited about it. You know, new opportunity, young team, hungry team, great city. Back in the Western Conference. Looking forward to new challenges. Should be fun.
One thing that I kind of always think, so we have this like free agency special that we do, and it's hours of TV, and it's almost gear up for it on the NBA calendar. But at the same time, I remember talking to Perk about this on one of the shows about how it's also like your guys' lives.
Yeah.
Like as much as fans are tuning in and recording and whatever to see like what the game show pieces moving around are, you're people and you're picking up your entire life and you're moving to a new city. And I, you know, talking about trying to keep things in perspective, I try to hold that perspective, but it's also, I can't imagine what that's like for you to have to go through. How is that?
I mean, it's tough. Even this time around was the toughest for me, just from the standpoint of, like, you know, I love playing in Chicago, beautiful city, you know, like everything about it was you know, great. Then all of a sudden, you know, you dealing with the reality of like, man, I may have to leave. I am leaving. Where am I gonna go? Yeah. And it becomes a thing to where I know for me, I really dive into, when I come to work, I want to make work fun. I want the person next to me to look forward to coming to work with me every single day. You know what I mean? Whether if we eat lunch, whether we talking, chilling, training table, from the coaches, training staff, whoever it may be, everybody who work in that same building, I pour into it so deeply emotionally because I know how rough it is for everybody. But we come here for 2 hours out the day for a common job that we got to focus on. So with that, I want to be able to give off a feeling to where, man, I had fun with D at work today, or man, this happened. So emotionally, I fall into a place to where like I get close with everybody. You know what I mean? Like I gain a brotherhood with everybody. So for me, not just it being basketball, my closeness that I have with guys, you know, it hurts knowing that, you know, I'm about to leave. Like I'm not gonna be around these same guys no more that we knew exactly what, or we shared, like, man, watch this tonight, or like it's so in depth for me, and especially like later in my career, like I learned not to take anything for granted. So I hold on to a lot of those relationships dearly. So leaving and knowing I was leaving, like it hit me hard. You know, I wasn't even tripping on like where I gotta go next. It was more so like I'm leaving these people that was damn near my family. Like how am I gonna be able to detach from this? Because I really care for them. Like I know their family, their friends. I know what they like, they dislike. We ate dinner every single night. We did everything together. So for me, that kind of like put me in like a dark place like a couple of weeks leading up to free agency and during free agency, because it's like, man, I'm gonna have to do this all over again. You know, and it's tough emotionally when you really care for people. And that was kind of like my biggest struggle, especially knowing, you know, you towards the back end of your career, and you're not gonna have many of these moments and years left to be able to, you know, have that brotherhood. You know, and for me, that was tough for me.
Feeling that basketball mortality.
That was hard. That kind of put me.
Is that when you kind of have to, like, you know, there are certain things that you're going to have to, I know this is going to be difficult for me, therefore I need to plan that I'm going to go kayak or go to the beach or go to the
for sure. So now it's like, now you gotta do all those things to give you that feeling back and kind of recharge to get ready for the next step of everything. But it takes time, you know. It is, you know, I'm finally getting better at it over these last probably like week since I, you know, signed this sack of just accepting what's next. Now I could proceed with caution of understanding what needs to be done next for me first before I start all the way over. So, yeah.
You can't pour from an empty cup. So.
No, you can't. Exactly. So.
And they're brave. it's really hard to be the first to do something. It's really hard to stick your neck out. It's really hard to put yourself and your vulnerabilities out into the world to be judged, to be examined, to be picked apart. And they did that. And so, you know, I hope that that makes it easier for folks that are coming after DeMar and coming after Kevin. It's one of the things I remember exactly where I was when I read and saw the social media posts, the first person stories from both of those, you know, players. And it was one of those things where I stopped and I said, wow, it's a where were you then type of moment. And I hope that those things happen to the point now where it isn't quite so much of a showstopper. That doesn't mean that it's treated with any less care or any less importance, because everyone's story deserves that care. But I think that that's where I hope that we are kind of all headed together.
What would be some advice you would give to a younger Malika that, you know, you feel will be very helpful?
You know what's funny? Like, so I get emails, right, from students sometimes who want to go into journalism, and I got one from a student the other day, and I get asked that question a lot by students. Like, what would you tell? Because they see themselves in the shoes that I was in, right? Well, what advice would you give yourself? What advice would you give yourself? And I was on a call with this young woman the other day, and she asked me that question, and I went to like kind of give my like rehearsed spiel. I was kind of tired and already running late and like trying to balance too many things. I said to her, I said, well, the advice I would give you, the advice I would give my younger self, or the advice I would give the advice I would give younger Malika is to worry a little bit less and to be a little bit more kind and patient with yourself. But I'm giving you that advice knowing that you're not going to take it because I'm still I'm the same person. You know what I mean? And I'm the same person who I worry a lot. I have a lot of anxiety. I think over things that maybe I shouldn't, no matter if other people tell me it's going to be okay and don't worry and do all of these things. So I'm giving you this advice to this young woman, to this younger Malika, because I saw myself in her, knowing I'm pretty sure you're not going to take it because it's not who you are.
Right.
And that's okay. But you have to know that as long as you keep showing up again and again and trying, and just try to take that advice and try to lean into knowing it's going to be okay. And if you do that, I don't want to say, here's this advice, take it, because I know I wouldn't. Right. Because it's part of my makeup. Like, part of my makeup is to be just a little bit on edge and just a little bit worried all the time. And I'm that same person. I can't separate the two. The demons that I have now are very similar to the demons that I had years ago. I've just had to continuously show up to fight them every single day. And so I would continue to give myself that advice. I would continue to say, just try not to worry so much. Just try to trust that things are going to be okay. Just try to be kind to yourself, knowing that still every single day that's hard. And the way that shows up is going to be a little bit different in your life, but that's going to be the demon that you're going to continue to battle for the next 20 years. But hey, sis, I'm still here. 20 years later, I'm still here battling that. We're still battling that together. And as long as you're committed to doing that, it's going to be okay. But for me, it's been the same advice. It's still the same advice. And some days it's scary that I'm still having to tell myself the same thing, that it's not a dragon I've slayed. But as long as I'm trying, that's a win in its own way, I guess, if that makes sense.
For sure. Thank you so much, Malika. Means the world coming out and do this with me. Hopefully this helps somebody, give them grace, patience, and understanding that, you know, everything will be all right. So thank you again for doing the show. You know, if you need me on yours anytime, you know I'm there, but I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, DeMar. Thank you.